Thanks, Darla. I'm excited to be here today. So I'm going to talk about 3 different areas that business owners need to think about if they want to make their business ready for everything and ready to grow into the future. I hope everyone on here has a pencil and paper because I'm going to go through a lot of stuff and fairly quickly. So the first area I want to talk about is in order to make a business resilient, just like you were hearing from Lisa, to grow into the future, we're going to talk about it from a business perspective. So the first area is trim the fat. And what do I mean by that? Everyone sits there and goes, oh, I don't know what you mean by that. But there's some very specific areas that get away from business owners that we need to address. The first is make sure that on any software you're using, whether it's on your phones or your computers, your auto renew is off. Everyone hear that? Off. Because before you renew it, you want to make sure that it's actually a tool you actually need. The trick with software companies is they get everyone to sign up for auto renew. So they forget about that tool, they don't use it, they don't work with it, and then the auto renew zips by, it gets charged to their credit card, and off they go for another year. And they go, I didn't want that tool anymore. Well, guess what? Once it's renewed for another year. So if there's a tool you have or a set of tools you have that you don't think you're really using, turn off the auto renew, force them to send you a renewal notice so that you can make a decision on whether you really want that tool or not. If you have licenses that are in US dollars, and this was really important during the COVID pandemic, negotiate a Canadian rate for your US dollar currency licensing. So for example, if you had a license that's $300 US, well, during the pandemic, interest rates were going up to, I don't know, I think the exchange was 1.45, 1.46, somewhere in there. That's a lot of extra money that they get that you get to dish out. So renegotiate your licensing into Canadian dollars at the same rate. So I successfully renegotiated licenses, big licenses for companies, into Canadian equivalency of the same license fee. So no change, just the same license fee. So that's the first area. So don't be afraid to ask and control your licensing and your expenses in that area. You can look at other expenses too, but I find licensing is one of the biggest leaks in a company. So area number 2, I want you to think about setting up power advisors. And everyone goes, yeah, well, I have people I talk to and stuff like that. But I want you to set up an advisory committee. And it doesn't need to be a board of directors. The big thing now is a less formal advisory committee. Often when people do that, though, they find they add their best friend, they add their their buddy down the street that does the same thing as they do. They bring people in with the common industry or the common goals. What you really want to do is mix it up and add some spark to your advisory group for your business. So you want to add people that are in different disciplines and different industries. People you know are best of breed in those industries, and don't be afraid to ask. A lot of people are really honored to be asked to be on an advisory board for an organization. So if you're in a financial advisory industry and you want an advisory group, consider taking people from other disciplines. Disciplines like, I don't know, construction, maybe disciplines like the medical industry or the health industry. Other accountants are good advisors. People that are willing to challenge you and get you to think outside the box. During the pandemic, people really had to start thinking about, how do I do my business differently? If you keep hiring people or talking to people that are doing the same thing as you, you're going to get the same answer as you. So think about what things you can do to mix it up, to challenge you, to step out and take some risk in your organization. I had a construction company that hired people from the financial industry, medical industry. They had a cannabis company advisor. They had a guy from the RCMP on their advisory group. They had all sorts of people, and his whole model changed and his business accelerated even though he was in the pandemic, because they were challenging him to think about things that he'd never thought about before. So the final area I want to get to is I want you to think about the key factors for growth. So the first one is team. Build a team with the skill sets you need to bring the company forward, not necessarily the skill sets you've needed in the past. So think about other skill sets that you need into the future. Put in place a line of credit for a safety net. So you have a fund to use to grow the business. Now, in theory, companies, just like Lisa was saying personally, companies should have 6 months worth of operating costs. But seriously, 9 times out of 10, companies don't have that. So the best solution is to have a line of credit that's that equivalent amount. So you can use it if you need it. The third thing is to keep your accounting, financial records, and your reporting to CRA up to date, because that opens opportunities to deal with things like what was offered during the pandemic, the CEBA. If you wanted to take advantage of some of the stuff that was offered during the pandemic, you had to make sure your records were up to date and clean. Even if you owe money to CRA, your records need to be up to date. Your financials need to be up to date so you can provide that information to someone that's trying to loan you money. So be ready for that change. The final area here is keep innovating. Listen to your clients and see where the niches are that aren't being filled. If I told you where my business started 34 years ago to where it is today and what I do today, I would have laughed at you 34 years ago. I would have said, I'm never going to be doing that. Forget it. But you listen to your clients and you're there to take advantage of those opportunities that are hanging right in front of you. And your advisory group will help you do that. So break from the pack, take some risk, and shake it up. Thanks, guys.